Mayoral Memo with Matho Dickerson from Dubbo Regional Council.
.5 Triple M. I'm joined by the Mayor of Dubbo, Matho Dickerson. How are you this morning, Matthew?
Really good, thanks, Matho. Really good, actually.
Very, very good to hear, sir. Now, just quickly, I spoke about the cat curfew earlier today. It's been reported that nothing has ever been brought up to you about these cats. Is that true?
That is absolutely true. The first I heard about any desire for a cat curfew was when a journalist rang me about it to ask about cats and what plans we had in place to put a curfew in place for cats. And I really didn't realise it was such a big issue. Sure, I see cats around at night time from time to time, but I don't know who owns them. I don't know if we actually put a rule in place that said there's a cat curfew, whether those cats would listen to us about that, whether they would then suddenly start staying in their own yards or indoors on those times if we put a cat curfew in place. The policing of that would be difficult. If they're not microchipped, trying to work out who owned those cats would be difficult. I'm not sure it's that big a problem, is it? But look, let me know if it is. If the residents out there think that they need a cat curfew, please let me know. I'm happy for anyone to send me an email, mayor@dubbo.nsw.gov.au, or give me a call, 0418 639 053. Tell me if you want a cat curfew in place.
All right, there you go. You've got the mayor's details now. Now, you whipped out the mayoral robes the other day for the new chamber.
First time I've worn the mayoral robes on this term of council. Yeah, so same with all the other councillors we had there. First time they put their councillor robes on in this term of council, and it's got to be a special occasion. We don't just put those on because we're going to go around and have a couple of beers at the pub. We put them on. That's right, that might be interesting. We put them on because we've now got a new council chamber. And there were some people who were a little bit disappointed about this because the old chamber has been in place as the official meeting place of council since 1972, so a lot of history there. But over the 151 years since we first formed a council back in 1872, we've had a number of different locations for council meetings. It used to be the old courthouse, then a town hall was built and various council chambers. But this time it was done for very pragmatic reasons. The first thing is that the council chamber we had was reserved as a council chamber. So it was used twice a month, and it's a fairly large area to be used for 2 meetings a month, and then it sits there basically vacant the rest of the time. So we're going to move other staff into there, use it as meeting rooms. We want that place used all day, every day. It just seems like we don't have enough money, I suppose, to just put aside that large amount of space. The second thing is that it was a bit inaccessible. If you had a wheelchair or if you couldn't walk that well, it was a bit of a drama to get to the chamber, and we felt like that was a bit restrictive on people who may not have great accessibility. So moving the chamber to the ground floor made it easier for people to access, but also it's a normal meeting room that's used all day, every day for various meetings, and then twice a month we just reconfigure it for a council meeting, and that seems to make much more sense. Yes, it doesn't have all the importance, if you like, or the physical importance of the council chamber that we had in the past, but it shouldn't be about the physical room. It should be about the decisions being made and the people sitting in that room and how serious they're taking their role. And I think our councillors are taking that role very seriously.
Yeah, no, very good, very pragmatic. Citizenships in Wellington, you've had a couple now.
Well, my first one ever, actually. I've done lots of citizenships in Dubbo, again, as my previous time as mayor, and this time around we did one earlier on in July, 38 new citizens in Dubbo at that particular citizenship ceremony. But my first one ever in Wellington, obviously not the first one ever in Wellington, but my first one. So on this term of council, we haven't had one yet, but there were 6 new citizens we have now in Wellington as a result of our citizenship ceremony last week, and that's always exciting. Citizenships, if you haven't been to one, Matho, make a date. The next time we've got one, come along, because it's just such a buzz in the room. People are so excited about becoming Aussies. They've got their friends and family who are really excited about welcoming to Australia. And I think our community is incredibly welcoming of people from wherever they are in the world. As long as they're happy to barrack for an Australian cricket team that sometimes wins and sometimes loses, then people are happy to welcome them into the Australian family. So it is a real buzz. But the first one in Wellington for me, and it was a smaller ceremony. 6 people were made citizens on that day, so it was much smaller, but a much more intimate ceremony. So it's a really exciting thing to be part of.
Yeah, no, it does sound exciting, and I could imagine there'd be a great atmosphere. Now, you've made some changes to people applying for the community fund to get grants from Dubbo Council.
I think it was a little bit complicated before, and it came to the council meeting last week for councillors to consider how we might make some changes. There used to be two funds, a community services fund and a community assistance fund, and there were very minor differences in the rules associated with each of those funds, but the amount of money available in each was significantly different, $120,000 in one fund, $30,000 in the other. And I must admit, when it came to council, back to council for councillors to make a decision on what organisations would receive the funds from the different funds, there was always this constant discussion around council saying, hold on, is this the right fund? Are they applying for? What about this other fund? Should they be going to that fund there? And in the end, council said, well, this is silly. If we're struggling to see which fund is the appropriate fund, then community groups run by volunteers, surely they're struggling a bit as well. So councillors made another very pragmatic decision. They rolled those two funds into one. Essentially, there are rules around it, but essentially if you're a not-for-profit community-based organisation, then you can apply for the funds. Again, have a read of the rules there, and we wrap the two amounts into one. So there's $150,000 it's per year, and that'll be rolled out in two rounds, so essentially $75,000 in each round. And the first round is basically open now, or will be open within days for that first round of funds. So it should be easier for organisations to apply. And one of the indicators I think that councillors took note of that it was a bit too complicated is that the last round that we did was undersubscribed. And when you've got funds there for the community to make the community a better place and they're undersubscribed, then you know you're getting something a little bit wrong in that process. So we've hopefully improved that. And one of the things I love about it, Matho, is we give small amounts of money out to these organisations. It might be $500 or $1,000. But I always ask the people who receive that money when we do the cheque handing out just to stand up and tell us in a couple of minutes what they're going to do with that money. What they do with that money is quite incredible. So they stretch that a long way. So I think it's really positive for the community.
You know, it sounds very positive, very pragmatic, and I think people are going to get a lot out of it. Thank you very much, Mayor of Dubbo, Matthew Dickerson, for joining us today. We'll catch up in a couple of weeks.
Sounds like you need to start calling us the Pragmatic Council, Matho.
That's right. At least one council in New South Wales will be.
Mayoral Memo with Matthew Dickerson from Dubbo Regional Council.